Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Matt PLUGHOFF, and I'd like to thank you very much for the opportunity to speak at the symposium and to share a few thoughts on selling in our current climate. I was thinking before this presentation that a few years ago, I wrote a blog, and the blog was titled, "If Apple Sold Air Conditioning." This was before Nest, and I was just sort of imagining a Steve Jobs type of figure on a stage with his turtleneck and his New Balance shoes, kind of unveiling Apple's latest and greatest product, in this case, as it relates to our industry, air conditioning. And I was thinking about this, if Apple sold air conditioning, most likely their products wouldn't look anything like our products, right? I imagined this really nice looking glossy egg type thing, and the Apple logo would kind of hum a light blue color during cooling mode. It would look awesome, right? It would look nothing like what we do. And Apple, being what Apple is, they'd charge $75,000 for this thing, and there'd be a waiting list that'd be, months long probably. It'd be revolutionary. These days, with the advent of new products like the Nest, or very recently Windmill, if you haven't looked at Windmill products, or Tesla's recent announcements that they're really seriously thinking about getting into the heating and air conditioning space, we are in an era where not only does product performance matter, but of course the experience that those products create for the customer becomes kind of embedded into the product itself. If you've been to an Apple store, for example, you know exactly what I mean. These are highly immersive experiences that don't leave a lot to chance. And it's one of the reasons why they've been able to build such loyal tribes of customers over the years, people that are just die-hard product users. But more importantly, they feel like they're connected to something bigger than themselves in the form of the brand, in the form of the customer experience. And that's one of the things that I want to communicate today to the symposium, is that the nature of selling, like the nature of everything else that we have been through recently, has undergone tectonic changes. And no longer is it enough just to have a great product, and no longer is it enough to say we do great work. In lots of ways, good, bad, or otherwise, those have become table stakes for today's customer who expects good products and who looks at good service as the baseline for what they're paying for what they're investing in. We have an opportunity right now. You have an opportunity right now, when you think about your sales strategy for 2021 and beyond, to recognize a couple of things. Number one, the experience is the product. The most exciting competitive platform today is based on the quality and the design of the experience that you provide your customers. It's one of the most scalable and creative opportunities that you have to not only improve your sales performance, your top and your bottom line, but also to embed your brand into your customers' lives so that they become voluntary advocates for who you are, what you do, and how you stay connected with your very best clients over time. And we've seen countless examples of that outside of our industry. We're just now beginning to reach a point in our industry where business owners are stepping back saying, I'm looking for the next best strategy. I'm looking for that next gear in the gearbox, so to speak. And I'd like to use this time today to introduce a couple of ways that we can start having that conversation. Now, I want to be nakedly honest here. What I do for clients is build customer experiences and build brand messages and strategies that help them accomplish this goal. But I do not want to use this as a bully pulpit. Instead, I'd like to walk you through a couple of scenarios that I think really best illustrate the points that I'm trying to make here. In order to accomplish that, I am going to have to do a quick screen share. So I apologize. I do not want this to be death by PowerPoint in any stretch of the imagination. But nonetheless, the slides, I feel, will illustrate sort of the direction that I'm going right now. So let me first reiterate the thesis of this presentation. In order for you to take your sales to the next level this year and in the coming years, you're going to need to really think long and hard about how you are going to supply a first-class customer experience. That's number one. Number two, your brand is your business and your business is your brand. For so long, we've thought about brand in terms of the products that we sell. And we've talked about who we are in almost ancillary or secondary terms. No longer. Your brand, your business brand is your most sellable asset. And if you invest in it correctly, it does build its own type of equity over the years. So if you don't mind, I am going to just reach up here. I'm going to do the screen share. Please forgive me. And one final adjustment. We are off to the races. Okay, love is better than like. Let me ask you a quick question here. Would you rather have 10 customers that are absolutely crazy raving fans for your customers that talk about you nonstop all the time to all their friends and their social media platforms when they're playing golf, when they're at work? Would you rather have 10 of those, or would you rather have 100 customers that use you once and then move on? Now, obviously, that's a rhetorical question, isn't it? All of us would much rather have a small nucleus of very, very loyal clients that voluntarily tell other people about us than a transactional base or book of business that really is momentary and is not particularly sustainable. But when I think about this new economy, when I think about my goals for your business this year and beyond, clearly it is to function in such a way that you build that small nucleus of very, very loyal customers that help voluntarily sustain your efforts and endeavors and help contribute to your growing sales and customer loyalty efforts. When you look back in time, there are a couple of indications that we have technologies that can accomplish this, right? From 1964, the aspiration of our time for wholeness, for empathy, depth of awareness, right, are a natural adjunct of electric technologies. Now, that is a very, very old quote, and he was far ahead of his time in making this observation, but nonetheless, it remains true. We have ways right now to scale our messages in a very broadcast manner. Well, that's a double-edged sword, right? I want to be very clear about this. Just because you can reach a lot of people does not necessarily mean that all of those people feel deeply connected to your business or your brand or what you stand for. In fact, I would also argue that one of the byproducts of our age right now, our hyper-connected, hyper-broadcasting age, is that we have lost a lot of that one-to-one connection that most of us grew our businesses from originally. Now, that's too bad. And I would like to argue here in a bit that there are some ways that we can actually preserve both modalities. Clearly, you have to be in the digital space these days, but not at the expense of the very important individual connections that end up sustaining your business over time. Second, we live now in an experience economy in which customers have shifted from passive consumption to active participation. Each of us experiences this on a daily basis with varying levels of intensity and personalization. But nonetheless, I think the fundamental point being made here is that your business has become an experience unto itself. And you hear from many people that markets are driven by price or there's excessive competition. And that's probably always been the case, right? However, if you want to escape that trap, right? If you want to escape commoditization, then you have to look at the quality of the experience that you're creating for your customers and candidly ask yourself, am I doing something here that is radically different from what the people that I compete against are doing? Right? Am I doing something that is really truly special that can't be found elsewhere? If the answer is yes, you have a much easier time defending your price, defending your markets. You also have an easier time attracting just those right clients that you want so badly. but the idea that we can continue to function as we have always functioned and somehow expect to create the unique experiences that customers are looking for is simply misguided. Building a quality experience is a business mandate. Having a customer experience strategy is no longer a negotiable consideration for business owners. Your customer experience is a product unto itself, as is your brand. And they're both very valuable, and they both require diligent maintenance and attention. And then finally, from one of my personal mentors, Howard Gossage, people don't read advertising. They read what interests them, and sometimes that's advertising. If you're like me, you're bombarded every single day with immense amounts of white noise, coming from any number of sources. They can be newsletters, banner ads, spam, call it what you want. But today's customer can tune those things out. And because of that, we have to work additionally hard and very thoughtfully, by the way, in terms of asking ourselves, what is it that our customers actually are paying attention to? What does stop them in their tracks? What does cause them to eclipse all the white noise in favor of certain kinds of messages? So again, that's about an intimate understanding of who your best customers are, why they make the choices that they make, and on a very specific, on a very granular level, why they have chosen to work with you. And that is a choice, right? When someone gives you their business, it is an act of volunteerism. They're not being forced to do that. They're not being cajoled. It is an act of volunteerism. And when you put it in those terms, the mandate and the sense of urgency for next level care, for a deeply rich experience, for a strong, compelling brand message becomes very obvious. Each of these people is speaking to our current reality, despite the fact that these quotes are in some cases quite old. Digital connections and the way that we can use them to build communities, experience economies in which we immerse our customers into something that takes ordinary products and transforms them into extraordinary products. And finally, in an interest economy, understanding our customers so well that we can capture and maintain a conversation with them over the years are all strategic imperatives. By way of an example, I'd like to reference a book that became a blockbuster. Now, this gentleman's name is Andy Weir, and he began releasing a book on a blog, really, like so many people do release books these days. And he earned a small following. A few people liked it. And at some point, like so many folks, he decided to self-publish, which is a great example of what I'm talking about, how a digital medium can allow a creator or a business owner to have a direct relationship with their customers without any kind of middleman or intermediary. We don't need them anymore. They serve a purpose, absolutely. But for people with the right attitude and the right product, and for people who understand that you don't need 100 transactional fans, you need 10 people to come back every single month and read your blog and purchase your book. That becomes the key to massive success at scale. So he published his book. The lowest possible price you can publish a book for on Amazon is 99 cents, which is exactly what he did. And a lot of people liked it. He sold the rights at some point to the guy who made Alien. And guess what? As a end game, right, or as a conclusion to this fantastic story, his book, originally published as a blog, sold for less than $1, became The Martian with Matt Damon and a great cast, and made $632 million and won quite a few awards, or at least was nominated for a lot. I love this story because it's a startup story. And for those of you that are listening to this who began your business, right, without any real promise of success, but with intention and with a few loyal customers that told other people about you, you can, in your own way, appreciate this story because it's the story of a good idea, loyal fans, and then through shared word of mouth and electronic signals, namely self-publishing, became a massive hit. And that's what I'm talking about these days. In our economy right now, the one thing that you cannot digitize, the one thing you can't optimize, the one thing you can't maximize, the one thing you can't AdWord are the conversations and the direct relationships that you have with your clients, the most important people in your business. Nothing happens without them. And sometimes I feel like we take it for granted. I'm as guilty of that as anybody else. But I do believe that love is better than like, and I do believe the experience is the product. And in this case, the book became a brand, the brand became a movie. You've got the opportunity right now, if you want, to take your business in this direction, to defy conventional wisdom in our industry, and to get back to a real sincere appreciation for that one-to-one connection, because it will be a one-to-one future. Technology will never slow down. It will continue to duplicate itself in shorter and shorter period of time. Let me reiterate the point. The one thing that you can't digitize or that artificial intelligence will never duplicate are those sacred individual relationships that you have with your clients. I think that's such an exciting thing. You must have a direct relationship, and you don't need a middleman to make this connection. You think about your database right now. How many people have you done business with over the years? And then you ask yourself, how many of those people do I still maintain some kind of connection with? Because at one point in time, you were saying, thank goodness that this person's here to help me keep my business going, to stay in business. Over the years, right, and it's just human nature, right? This is not an indictment. Over the years, we just kind of take that for granted. And as our businesses grow, they kind of morph into marketing companies, and then we bring outside people in to help us do that. And as I said earlier, we need those, right? They're vital. They're very important. At the same time, Andy Weir's story illustrates that having a direct relationship with your audience, with your customers, allows you to keep a conversation going, and also tacitly encourages them to tell other people about who you are and what you do. In other words, right, I view this, and I view the future as the difference between a funnel and a flywheel. In some ways, these are not mutually exclusive concepts, by the way. I'm not suggesting that one is necessarily able to exist without the other. But frequently in marketing conversations, you may hear agency experts talk about the role of a funnel in your business, right? That at the top of your business is a open mouth funnel, and that through investments and other technologies, you put people, right, potential customers into the funnel. And, over time and through a variety of different mechanisms that what comes out the other side, of course, are leads, that the company promotes certain brands and that attracts certain people. What I'd like to suggest is that in 2021 and beyond, the very most important thing that your company can do, or that your experience creates, is a customer. When you think of the loyalties that you've got, are you loyal to the microprocessors in your phone, or are you loyal to that community? And I think the answer is obvious, that you're loyal to the community. Your job, every business's job, your first and foremost obligation is to create customers. It's why the business exists. The purpose of business is to create customers. And the easiest way to do that, right, is to build really loyal, very happy customers. This is a quote from Brian Chesky. Now, I'm sure many of you have used Airbnb and have probably been pretty satisfied. I know I have. But he said, if you want to create a great product, just focus on one person. Make that person have the most amazing experience ever. I think it's a great quote. And I can personally think in my life as a consumer of some experiences that have been so over the top that I've talked about them literally for years, in every seminar, in every keynote address, to the point where I'm sure people have said, I've heard this story before, which is really never a great place to be. But nonetheless, his point, I think, is so powerful these days, that if you agree that your customer experience is vital to your business growth, right, and can scale without a lot of additional investments, if you can agree to that, then you also should at least partially agree with the idea that if you just figure it out with one person, right? If you get that one person and you deliver an experience that is so over the top that when they're finished, they say to themselves, that is the last thing I expected from a heating and air conditioning contractor, then you've begun to crack this code. And once the code is cracked, then you look for ways to duplicate it, which is exactly what Airbnb did. By the way, the context of this story is sort of unique. When this company was getting started, it was based in San Francisco, but largely in New York, right? Most of its apartments were in New York. And these guys getting it off the ground would literally go to every single person who at the time was offering to host a visitor in their home and get to know them and learn about why they were in the program and what they were doing to stage homes and to provide a pleasant experience. There's a lot that we can learn from intimate knowledge regarding our customers. Sometimes I think we gloss over that too quickly because we are so focused on the hard products, the unitary products, right? That we forget that people are using us for reasons that are very unique to themselves or their situations or their lifestyles. And if we can understand the reasons that they're working with us, or the reasons that someone would volunteer their home to a complete stranger, if we can understand why people are choosing to use us or choosing to use your company, because there is a reason, and it's probably not just the furnace or the air conditioner. There's probably something else there. Reaching that level of intimate insight allows you then to refocus your sales message, right? To customize it, to move away from a one size fits all, rather generic message into something that really does reflect the deeper interests or inclinations that your customers have. And I want to spend just one more moment here emphasizing that point. Each of your customers uses your business for a reason that is unique to them. And it's very important that we understand what those reasons are. Today, the idea of having a one-size-fits-all sales message in which every customer more or less receives the same kind of push type message is a surefire recipe for commoditization and downward price pressure. If you want to escape the downward price pressure, right, just that constant derision, then we have to be accountable on a business level, on a personal level. We have to be accountable for deeper understandings as to why our customers use us, and also hold ourselves accountable for taking that information and using it to customize our sales message to future customers. So let's just call this your onlyness blueprint. I do believe that in every one of your businesses that I can find something that is unique to you. Your onlyness, something that is remarkable, something that has a lot of intrinsic value, something that is probably just hidden, right? In fact, I've never met a company that doesn't do something really awesome in the name of customer service that never talks about it. I call that making the invisible visible. And I would challenge you to make the invisible visible. If you're doing something in your business and it's awesome, but no one's talking about it, then how does that awesomeness ever reach the person who may be most interested in it, namely the customer? Your onlyness blueprint and making the invisible visible is the process of looking inward, right? Holding a mirror up to yourself and asking yourself, what are the things that we do that have a tremendous value that we just aren't talking about right now? And what would happen to our customer relationships and our sales performance if we did? Being seen as the only choice is the holy grail of business. I don't think anybody listening to this would not like to be in a place where they were the only heating and air conditioning provider in their community or in their market. That might sound monopolistic. It's not necessarily intended to, but wouldn't it be nice if you didn't have any competition? The reason that this conversation about the customer experience and your brand is so important is because that's what it aspires to accomplish. There might be 50 other contractors in your market that you compete against every day. But if you can definitively say we're the only place that does this, then is there competition? If you're able to say our brand delivers this level of quality X, and that's something that is really exciting to define, then you automatically set yourself apart from everybody who says we're just as good as you are. We just happen to be less expensive. So when I work with clients in this particular topic, we talk about things like this, right? What specific differentiation would you like to be known for? What unique quality that nobody else is really talking about or illustrating would you like to hang your hat on? That becomes then the segue into a series of more specific examinations. Who is your absolutely ideal customer at a granular level? Now, what's the purpose of that? Well, because we all have people that we would like to do more and more and more business with. And we just oftentimes don't step back and say, well, what do they have in common? Or I did business with this particular individual or family. They were fantastic. They couldn't have gone any better. How can I find other people like that? Now, of course, the obvious answer is to provide such a crazy good experience to that ideal customer that they want to tell other ideal customers about who you are. But knowing at a very, very specific level who your best customers are and why they work with you allows you then to target both your outbound messaging and marketing, but also your kitchen table sales platform. What is irresistible? Once you know your customers and you know really why they're working with you, what can you provide that they can't say no to? That doesn't necessarily have to be a promotion, by the way. It could be a certain nuance to your service. How will you serve your ideal customers better than anyone else? Now, there are countless examples of businesses that already have this figured out, from Delta Airlines to Bucky's Gas in Texas. But the question remains, once you know who they are and once you know what they really, really appreciate, how are you going to take that and amplify it? What can you weed out because it doesn't add to customer delight? And, I think for most of us, when you think about your sales process, there are aspects of it that are extraneous or that don't, further strengthen the kind of connection that you want to make with these people. That's important, right? Sometimes, as they say, less is more, but understanding that if you start to pare certain things back, it allows you to intensify your focus on other items is an important step in this process. Who's your power base? Who are your best customers? Now, you may say that's a matter of demographics or it's a matter of psychographics or anything like that. But unless you have that direct relationship with your customer, that conversational relationship, that Brian Chesky relationship, that Andy Weir relationship, that kind of intimacy cuts through the data. And I think it's important to note here that, although that information is very good, nothing is going to substitute a strong personal connection. Demographics and desire are two very different things. What you can't replace, what is irreplaceable, is you being able to pick up the phone and have a personal, friendly, intimate conversation with your clients in order to understand why they used you and why they will continue to use you and tell other people about you. How can we make processes that we can duplicate? And I alluded to this earlier. Once you know who your best customers are, you know why they use you, then of course we start to look for ways to not only refine that, but put it into a process that can be repeated again and again. And that ensures consistency. When consistency goes up, perceived risk goes down. And, of the many, many things to talk about in sales or in terms of becoming better sales organizations, we have to acknowledge that risk plays a significant role in terms of why people do or don't use us. And being perceived as the most consistent and least risky choice is a huge asset. So I would ask you as a challenge question, What can you do to mitigate risk, to further mitigate risk, part one. And part two, how can you communicate that strategy to your customers so that when you are talking about this process, which is infrequent, you're positioning yourself as the least risky, therefore most valuable choice. There's an inverse relationship between the two. Finally, when you think about your experience, and we're going to transition here in a minute, I would challenge you to take the governor off of your imagination. Building a great customer experience is in part a creative process. It's in part a co-created process with your customers. But I learned this a long time ago, that if you look at our industry right now and you say, well, what is a one-star experience? Right? What's the worst experience an HVAC contractor could provide? Well, it would probably go along the lines of the customer calls 10 times before they get a phone call back, or there's no website, or their social media feed has all sorts of inflammatory content on there that's a real turnoff to people. When the contractor shows up, he or she is late, they're wearing filthy clothes, no mask, no social distancing, maybe they litter. Yeah, and there's an element to that in every industry, right? I mean, sometimes I think the trades get kind of a bad name. We know there are some incredible customer service agencies, or companies rather, in our industry, and we should be celebrating those. But that would be as bad as it gets, right? A 2-star experience would be a little bit better. Maybe the phone got finally returned after 5 calls, something like that. And then you kind of go up the scale. What would a 5-star experience be? Well, the phone would be answered. There'd be a semi-updated website. The person would be on time. They would do social distancing, shoe covers, masks, gloves, hand sanitizer. Maybe they would have some ways to explain the products using technology. What you quickly find, if you really go for it and imagine an 11-star experience, right? If you could do absolutely anything to please your customers, maybe they'd call and the person answering would be a Paul McCartney imitator, and your website would be absolutely as good as it could possibly be, and your social media would be relevant and timely and correct and fun, and on and on and on. So often, because we are sort of a herding species, we look around our industry and we say, well, this is what everybody else is doing, therefore I should do it too. And while there's an element of safety and security there, there's certainly not any element of extraordinary thinking. And I'm not pointing any fingers at you or this symposium or anything like that. It's just what happens in business, right? Taking a risk, pushing boundaries, thinking quote unquote in unconventional manners, it's not what we're accustomed to. And yet, if I were to say that the future of your business is going to lie in those kinds of conversations, that pushing your customer experience in new directions, unfamiliar, potentially uncomfortable directions, and building a brand message that's so strong and so individual that people look at it and say, you're the only person doing this. I've got to have you as part of my process here. If I were to suggest that and demonstrate it, a lot of us would probably say it makes sense, right? For a long time, we have allowed the middle of the bell curve to dictate our customer service standards. And it's time for you, and it's time for our industry to push forward, right, into places that we haven't been before. But those are also the places that the customers are not only hungry for, but they're expecting. In other words, right, and this is from Forbes, 86% of customers will pay more for a great customer experience. 32% of customers will walk away from a brand they love after a single bad experience. I believe that, and I see it in my own life, and I see it in the lives of my friends and colleagues. When you're having a great experience, it doesn't matter what the venue is, what the product is, there's almost a baked-in assumption that comes at a slightly higher price. There's a cost to the experience. Interestingly enough, though, there's also not a lot of buyer's regret or buyer's remorse. If an organization or a product provides a customer experience that elevates the entire process and pulls you in and engages you in a variety of different levels, at the end of that, you look back and say, that was money well spent. Now, the more recent examples, of course, that you can look at and say, I never thought I would go pay to throw hatchets and axes. Oh my gosh. A friend of mine just did that, right? They went to one of these axe throwing places. And you say, well, was it fun? It was great. I never thought that you would go and pay to throw axes, hatchets. I even think they have those like little ninja throwing stars in this place, but that's what I'm talking about. The experience is the product. This is your single greatest opportunity to gain an advantage in our industry. When I think about selling, when I think about sales, and I do sales coaching, a lot of sales coaching, it's very easy to look at some of the sales tactics. Let's ask some open-ended questions, or let's use this kind of language to describe our products. And all of that, it's good. You know, it's foundational stuff. It's also reached a point of imitation. When you weaponize your creativity to provide a next level experience, when you weaponize your creativity in the interest of providing an unstoppably awesome customer experience, you simultaneously and systemically improve your entire sales process. Breaking that down, and this is part of the process of building great experiences, you have to look at the quality of the emotional connections, your value proposition, the ease of use. How frictionless are we to do business with? And how do we exceed and overserve customer expectations? And there's a formula for this. It's not the easiest thing in the world to break down, right? I mean, it's one thing to say, just have a great experience. However, there's a process that businesses go through to assemble this level of service, right? This kind of unmistakably strong, unique experience. And it involves these 4 modalities. You have to build a strong emotional connection, but based on what? And the answer is, of course, based on customer insight. You have to have a unique value proposition, but that's easier said than done. That's your onlyness component. Ease of use, frictionless service. How can we be easier to work with? In many ways, that's one of the fastest ways to catalyze growth, is just being easy to work with. And then once we know what our customers' expectations are, how can we, with intent, look for ways to overserve and exceed them? So this idea of an experience, right, it looks a little bit like a kaleidoscope. And you can turn it this way and you can focus on the connections. You're going to turn it that way and focus on service. When it combines, when they all come together, something really magical happens to your sales experience. And most importantly, from the customer standpoint, something magical happens there. When their expectations are defied wholesale, they're left asking themselves, why wouldn't I want to work with a company that puts so much attention to detail into their customer service experience? Why wouldn't I want that? Because naturally, the alternative is to go spend money with an also ran and then have that sense of rejection or remorse, or I wish I would have. And we all run from that feeling. Exceptional customer experiences are the only sustainable platform for differentiation. Products in our industry, they're all really good. They're also commodities, right? You look at controls, you look at all the things that we sell, and by and large, they are commodities. If your company is viewed as a commodity, you can only command commodity pricing. And if you're looking for an advantage, if you're looking for a way to capitalize on our current economy, the trends that are happening around us, you have to appreciate the fact that a great customer experience will grow with your business over time. It is sustainable. It's got nuances that you can adjust as changes occur in the market or with your customers. And ultimately, from an internal standpoint, it galvanizes everything that you do. There's no bolt-on to a great experience. It is your company. There's no ancillary thing that you can just go and pick up and say, hey, I went to an experience seminar. if you go down this road and you immerse your company and your level of commitment into this deliverable, it galvanizes your entire organization. Right now in Las Vegas, the Zappos headquarters is draped in flags with the late Tony Hsieh's face on them. For those of you that know the company, you may also know that the founder of the organization passed away recently. That company still stands in my mind and in the minds of many people as the benchmark early on in the tech sector for this kind of galvanization. Nobody did it better. Exceptional experiences are the only sustainable platform for differentiation. So the principles that I abide by, and I'd be happy to share these with you as well when it comes to what really makes great experiences, have to do with the customer's identity, the higher objectives that we're trying to satisfy, the level of detail, right? The overmanaged details that go into incredible experiences, the ways in which companies constantly exceed expectations, the manners by which they remove difficulties and friction, the way they keep the stress level very low, the way they're sensory, they're immersive, they're engaging. The customer is part of this process, right? The customer is actually very much in control. And they have an emotional outcome, right? They have a begin with the end in mind type of intent to them. There's nothing accidental about a great customer experience. Absolutely nothing accidental. It is a designed process. And combined with your brand, they are the ingredients for decommoditizing you in the marketplace. To talk about sales and not talk about these two components would be irresponsible. These are your sales strategies in 2021 and in the years to come. If you're viewed as a commodity, you can only command commodity pricing. If you're listening to this, I'm sure that one of your prime objectives for the year is to make more money this year than last year, right? To have happier customers, stronger culture, hire better people, attract better customers. And it starts with this conversation. The quality of your service or product is not what you put into it, it's what your customers get out of it. And I think to me, that's one of the coolest parts of this conversation is that it really necessitates, and I'm challenging you to shift perspectives radically in some cases. We came into this industry, probably most of us, from the perspective of the tradesman. I'm great at this particular craft. And truly, if customers knew how much expertise and effort went into the craft, they wouldn't give us such a hard time about price, in my opinion. But over time, of course, technologies and companies and best practices all do find themselves floating somewhere in the middle of a bell curve. Now, if you shift your perspective and you look at this from the point of view of the person spending money or making these choices, the question is, how do I stand out? As Seth Godin said in his book, Tribes, how do I build the brightest fire on the beach and attract the most people and the best people? And it starts with experiences. It starts with providing high-touch experiences, and it starts with your brand, being able to communicate why you're special in terms that customers understand and appreciate. So let's build the future together. I have two companies here, the Brand Lab at hvacbranding.com. And the purpose of that company, as you might guess, is to build experience and brand strategies for contractors. If you want to level up your game, if you want to finally have an experience that you're looking at saying, this is who I know I've always been inside, and now I can finally express it to my customers, then I'd love to work with you. If you're looking at your brand and you're saying, I really would love to be able to communicate my position or who I am and what I stand for, that this is a great chance for us to work together. The second for contractors is a online selling platform called the Sales Lab. If you haven't been to sales training in the last year, and I imagine you probably haven't, this is an online platform. It's a monthly platform. It's also a growing community of people that are really cool, and they're all committed to best practices and sharing and learning together. The Sales Lab can be found at arrowandfletching.com, which is the parent company that I have. So we provide online coaching, in-person coaching. Most importantly, it's very reflective of what's happening right now. And I'd be more than happy to chat with you about either of these services. Let's talk. So my name is Matt PLUGHOFF. There is my mobile number, an email address. You can find me online for podcasting and blogging, and I have a Vimeo channel as well. You know, this might not exactly be what you expected from a sales quote unquote presentation. However, selling has changed, right? It's no longer a linear process. It's an immersive process, and it's a process that can be catalyzed with great brand talking points. The purpose of every business is to create and keep customers. And the only way that you do that is by providing them experiences and a sense of connection and community to a brand that they can't find anyplace else. So please reach out if there's anything I can do for you. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to share these ideas with you today. I hope you're well. Please enjoy the rest of the symposium. And to everyone that has hosted this, thank you very, very much. Take care, everybody, and I look forward to speaking with you in the future.